and they had what they were looking for, and unfortunately what I had wasn't what they were looking for. And like I just have to be okay with that and know that where I end up is where I'm supposed to be, and that's what everybody says. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. You know I have to ask, how are you feeling today? Have you looked in the mirror and told yourself that you're beautiful, that you're worthy, that you're competent? If not, stop this video, go ahead and do that, and then come right back and we can get started.
Yes, so in this video, we're going to be sharing with you guys how we were able to get through handling rejection letters. Hopefully this will help the fellow fourth years that have had some rejection letters come in. We're going to be giving advice to our first, second, and third year students on how to avoid being where we are at right now in some aspects. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and collect some gems along the way.
So just like a little backstory of like how it used to go. So usually like you submit your application and then honestly you can start getting interviews whenever. So you have to be by your phone or by some type of electronic device to where you can like secure those interviews quickly. So usually what most people do is like they would make an email for like their interviews and for ERAS, which is the system that you apply to residency through. And then you'll just have family members, friends, significant others have access to it as well, so that whenever you get that email, whenever you get that notification, you can respond. Because the thing is, y'all, it's first come, first serve.
It really
so
is.
like, in the past, they tried to change it this year for some specialties, but they would send out more interview invites than they had spots, and so it was literally a first come, first serve. Like spots go within seconds.
No,
I'm telling you, seconds.
No joke.
You'll blink and it'll be gone.
No joke, y'all.
So like you have to act fast, and then there's different like ways to like sign up for interviews, which is a whole nother thing. Like it's not just one streamlined process. Like there's different programs can choose different ways to like sign up for interviews, and so like there's that added stress. So anyway, that's backstory. That's how things used to be. That still are for a lot of programs.
I got my first letter probably like after I submitted. They basically were just like, no, we are sorry to inform you that we were going to decline you for our interview or for an interview. And at first I was like, I mean, this was a really outreach program anyway, so I wasn't really tripping about that program. But then I got a rejection from a program that I actually really wanted to go to, and I just wanted like a chance to interview there, and that low-key hurt my soul a little bit, because I was like, dang, like
a lot of it.
Like, since I was out here crying, I was sad, because I was like, I really wanted, like in my head, I had gasped up this program, and I really was like, this will be a great city for me to be in. This will be a great opportunity for me to just grow. They always tell you only get trained once, so you want to go somewhere that you feel like you're going to be trained adequately and also be pushed out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. So mine came a little bit later just because of the specialty that I'm going into, and quite a few specialties I've chosen to do this way this year. So basically they're only sending out your interview dates on specific days. We had 2 specific days in which we were going to be sending interview invites. One day was like the main day with the majority of the programs sending it that day, and then like all the other programs who didn't would send it at the later date. Or sometimes certain programs will only send out a handful, and then they will send out the other batch the next day or the following week. So, that day, let's just talk about that day. Y'all, sis was stressed. But what I didn't know is that I was also going to be receiving rejections on that day. So not only are you receiving interview invitations, wait lists, but you're getting rejections, because the way they did it was like they wanted to make sure that they were really selective, I guess, with the people. Like they didn't send out as many interview offers this year. They didn't have as many spots. Like things were very limited. And then a lot more, and they also had a lot more applicants because everybody's applying everywhere, and so broadly, because there weren't any away rotations, like people were just shooting their shot to be honest, at all these programs. And so there were like programs had more, like a lot more, hundreds more applications than they usually do have. And so I got that rejection. The thing is, going into this, I was like, I ain't gonna tell nobody my talk shows. I ain't gonna tell nobody my dream program. And at that moment, I was like, dang, I shouldn't have told nobody nothing. Dang, now I'm hurt. Like I was everybody hurt, and everybody knows. Even my mom, I had hyped up this program to my mama, everybody. And so when I got that rejection letter, I literally just stared at it. And I was like,
my heart
my heart really sank. And the thing is, I've been blessed this interview season, and so I was receiving a lot of interview invitations, but I was waiting for that one. Like I was literally waiting for that one. And then when I saw it, you can kind of tell when they send the email what it's gonna be, because if it's an invitation, it's like no reply, something about interview.
Right.
But if it's like a wait list, or if it's a rejection, it's like status.
Right.
Status update.
Right.
That's how you know.
Yeah.
And that one said like status update, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I read it like 10 times.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this real? Like, are you sure, God? Like,
real?
Is this, like, I have no chance.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, no spots are filled.
Yeah.
No more interviews are being sent out. I was so hurt. And so, like, and it sucked because that day was supposed to be, like, a really happy day. And I kind of let that overpower everything else.
And so, like, that were coming in.
Yeah. So my mom was like on my case. She was like, you need to get it together. Because I was being very cynical. And the thing is, in that moment, like, for me, when I process things, I'm really logical about things. And so I was thinking very logically about everything and trying to be like super duper realistic. And I'm like, hey, this is why they didn't want me. But I wasn't really like feeling it. I was just like thinking it through and trying to like reason it out and being rational, I guess, about the situation. But yeah, I was hurt. This was very hurt. And it's very interesting because like I'm gonna be transparent. Like I got offered to do an away at this program, and so I was like, yes, I'm definitely in here. And then I got humbled. And I was like,
yeah,
no. So yeah, that was probably my biggest one. And since then, I've gotten many rejections from like other programs.
Yeah.
Which is to be expected at this point. Like, I'm used to it. Yeah. But it's kind of nice that you have a final answer, because sometimes people are waiting around to hear from programs that they're never going to hear from, and they don't get a rejection or anything. But
that's true too.
The specialty I'm going into, they're sending everything. Yeah. So it's nice, but it's also kind of discouraging. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, I actually didn't hear anything from the program. And so I was like, okay, we about week 3 in. Let me just send a letter of interest. A lot of people talk about sending a letter of interest. And so I sent it out. And the next day they were like, yeah, we looked at your application and we just felt like there were more competitive applicants over you. And I was like, well, dang.
And that's what like all the emails said. They're like, it was a strong application.
Yes.
And honestly, I really believe that this year.
Yes.
I mean, for previous years, but I feel like this year really they were overwhelmed with applicants, and they had really, really strong applications. Yeah. And so you just have to, and that's the thing, because my mom was getting on me about like being too, I guess, pessimistic or like being just a realist. But I'm like, at this point, I have to think things through. Like, I'm a good applicant. I'm not going to take anything away from myself, but there are better applicants, like, period. Like, there were just better, stronger applicants, and they had what they were looking for. And unfortunately, what I had wasn't what they were looking for. No, and like, I just have to be okay with that and know that where I end up is where I'm supposed to be. And that's what everybody says. Yes. Like, everybody echoes the same sentiments. They're like, you may not believe it through the process or even when you're accepted there, whatever, whether that's your first choice or your last. Like, but once you like in the program and you're experiencing, you're like, okay, this is why I'm here. Like, I am supposed to be here, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So. Yeah.
So we can talk a little bit about how we actually like kind of worked through like the process of just processing the whole rejection in general. Mm-hmm. I think for me, what my therapist told me after I called her upset, she was like, listen, at the end of the day, you're supposed to feel those feelings. You're supposed to feel the rejection. You're supposed to feel hurt, angry, disappointed, and all those things. Don't just like hop over those emotions, because it's going to come back up one way or the other in some other aspect of your life. Don't internalize that rejection and think that it's just you as a person. They're rejecting you as a person. They're rejecting your application. They're rejecting like what's on paper. They didn't even meet you. They don't really know you, Jessica, or you, NECA, personally. So they're not necessarily rejecting you. But don't just stay in that space either. Yeah. Be aware of that space that you're in of disappointment, but then remember who you are. Remember how strong your application really is to you when you submitted that on ERAS, and then just be grateful for the other interviews that you've gotten as well, and put your best foot forward and reassess the whole situation. That program just wasn't for you.
And that's okay. Like there's hundreds of programs. Hundreds of schools, whether you're going through the med school process, the pre-med, whatever your situation is, like that school, that program, that job, whatever.
Right.
If it's meant for you, it's going to be for you. And there's so many opportunities out there. They have to filter. Like, they have to screen out people.
They can't accept everybody.
They can't. And they have the specific things that they're looking for. It may be you, and it may not be you. You know? So
For sure. There's no perfect program. There's just a perfect program for you. So just make sure you're looking and keeping an eye out for the things that are important to you, because this interview season, you can really pick up on what's important to you and what's not. You can pick up on dynamics over Zoom. People are underestimated that this cycle, but you definitely can see which programs are putting in effort, in your opinion, that you are impressing you, because at the end of the day, they are also being interviewed. Like, you are asking questions at the end of your interview, trying to figure out what's best for you, because honestly, we're in Houston, and we have to figure out whether we want to go to the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, the South. Like, we have to figure that out, and we need to ask all the questions necessary. So, yeah, that's for sure.
Because that was one of my biggest worries about everything being virtual. Is just not being able to experience that program, see the facilities, tour, see how the residents interact with one another, see how they interact with faculty, staff. Like, that was one of my biggest things. But honestly, I've been able to see. You can peek. Like, you can really pick up on things and see how the residents interact, especially because there's virtual socials the night before that you can attend with the residents, and it's no faculty, only residents, so you can kind of see how they work well together and vibe, if they really like each other. You can feel the energy, you can pick up on things. And so if you were worried about that, or if like that's something that, if you haven't started interviewing virtually yet and like that's something you're worried about, don't be, because you can honestly pick up on it.
For sure. Last thing, we want to just have a little moment for our first, second, and third year students. Make sure that during your first, second, and third years that you have put in the work with your NBME scores, because even if your board exam score is not strong enough, that may be an indicator for them to be like, okay, they didn't do well on this one day. Maybe there was an off day for them. Let's look at their NBME scores. Are they above average? Are they average? Are they below average? That also helps your case in regards to getting chosen for an interview come this interview season. Obviously, things, are different for us, but they still have to be very, very specific and very detailed in who they're picking this interview cycle. And so I think that's kind of what might have been an indicator as far as some of the rejections that you've gotten, is if you are well-rounded in other cases, what were your scores looking like? Or vice versa. If you had a great board exam scores, but then you weren't really well-rounded anywhere else, they're going to be like, okay, what else does she bring to the table? So definitely just keep that in mind. Scores are important. They're not the end of the world, but they are important in terms of getting you in the door.
Yeah, definitely, like, because we've been very open, very transparent about like the struggles we've had in medical school, and like average scores, below average scores, whatever. And like, you don't want to say that these things matter, and you don't want to like put a huge emphasis on it, but at the end of the day, they do matter.
Yeah.
The higher your scores are, the better you do throughout medical school. The higher your board exam scores are, the easier it's going to be for you. And like, we're getting interviews, so we're not going to even like talk. We're not saying that it's not going to be impossible, but to get those top programs, if that's something that you want, to get to those Ivy League programs, if that's something that interests you, you have to have the scores. And like, honestly, that's the reason why we have gotten some of the rejections that we have gotten. We've been blessed to get really, really good programs, but like those number 1, number 2, number 3 programs that you have your heart set on, that are amazing programs. And they do. I'm not gonna play them and say that they don't look at applications holistically. I'm sure they do, but the ones who have the higher scores, they're gonna be put towards the top of the list. You know what I'm saying? So like, yes, we are very well-rounded, but when you're competing with hundreds, thousands of other med students who are just like you, and sometimes better than you are, who've just had, better experiences throughout med school, who have just done very well throughout all of their clerkships, and who have done well in their first 2 years and on their board exams, they're gonna get the top picks. And like, that's just how it is. And so you have to kind of be realistic and honest with yourself. And also, the school that you go to sometimes matters. Like, when you're really looking at those top programs, like the academic institution that you're at, it can pull a lot of weight. If you go to Harvard, if you go to Yale, if you go to like these Ivy League top tier programs in med schools, it's going to be easier for you to get into those residency programs, to get into those fellowships, just because of the network that you're in, just because of the name that you have on your CV and your application. And we keep it real, y'all. So we go to a very good school, but it's not an Ivy League.
No.
And so there's going to be there's opportunities that other people have that we don't have, and like vice versa. And so like, you really have to take these things into consideration. So
for sure. So yeah, we're never gonna sit there and tell you to be a perfect applicant. We're never gonna tell you that you can't get into this place because you have this score. And we're gonna always encourage you to do your very best. But let's say your very best was still average. keep in mind what that means for your reality when applying to residency.
Exactly. And that's why we get advised to apply to a certain amount of top programs, apply to middle programs, and then apply to lower programs, or programs that you think are a little bit lower than, I guess, what your standards are, just like your goals, whatever you hope to achieve or whatever. So like that's why we get this advice. And at first I was like, whatever, I'm gonna apply to where I want to apply to. But it really makes sense. It makes sense.
I think for me, I still was this application cycle, I was definitely very intentional about where I applied to. I wanted to ensure that for my mental health, could I be in a city that was small, big, medium sized? Does it have to be diverse? Does it have to have certain aspects of my hometown? And I felt like it did. For my sanity, it had to. And so that's why I was looking at this cycle, although I wasn't necessarily like had a 260 on step. You know what I mean? So I definitely think you should still stay true to yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you have a lower end score, then keep that in mind when applying for, the broad range of schools that you apply to.
A lot of the advice that you get throughout med school with applying to residency, listen to it. Because I still applied to more programs than I needed to, but honestly, the amount of programs I applied to was what was recommended to me. Yeah. So it's not like I applied to a lot more than I was supposed to. At first, I was like, I'm not applying to all those programs, and then I freaked out, and then applied to a lot more. But even then, it was still in the range that I was suggested to apply to. And so I'm glad that I listened to that advice. I'm glad that I listened to the whole top program, middle program, lower program. But did I apply to every single program? No, because I didn't need to, first of all. And just because I knew that I wasn't going to be happy in certain areas. So we'll talk like more about this after match and stuff, like specific about like what our credentials were, like our standings. We'll be real transparent, tell y'all like it is, so you'll know how many interview offers we got. We'll talk about all of that in more detail, but just like ballpark, usually they try to say aim for 12 to 15 interviews. Yes. And then that's when you're like literally almost 100% likely to match. Yes.
So hopefully you got some gems from this video. Hopefully whoever is out there who has some rejection, y'all are like working through the emotions.
We understand y'all.
It took
me. The thing is, I was trying to be G about it, and then like I had a little sad moment where I was like, I didn't cry. I'm very surprised I didn't cry, but I was in my feelings. And then I talked to my mama, of course, and like my friends and stuff, and they helped me get through it. But it took some days. But just like we said, don't stay in that dark place. Like, don't stay in that negativity, because you are going to match somewhere. You are going to get accepted into some medical school, some residency program. Like, it's going to happen. And it's going to be the spot that you're supposed to have and where you're supposed to be. So just remember that.
Yes. We hope that you receive that.
Yes. So, we have a little treat.
We do.
Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la la. Anyway, we know how disrespectful this year has been. So we wanted to do something special for you guys. Yeah. So we're gonna do our little version of Vlogmas. You ain't gonna get a vlog every single day.
Absolutely not.
We're not about that life. But we will be dropping content once a week during the month of December. Yes. And at the end of each video, we're going to have a little giveaway. Yes. We're gonna have some goodies for you guys.
Yes. So we're going to be giving it to the people who are, active. So make sure that you are sharing our content. Make sure that you're liking and commenting and sharing with people that you love and support. Yes. And we may just bless you with something, something real.
Ooh, that's some good stuff.
Valuable, child. So, yes, that will be for the month of December. So stay tuned.
Yeah. And then all of the details are going to be in the description box, how to enter, what to do for the giveaway, all those good things.
It'll be very simple.
It'll be really simple. But yeah.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our video.
Share with a friend or two.
Yes. And we will see you in our next video.
Bye, y'all. Bye.